the ability to target, and as a young lady in the back said, a non-presidential year, the voter turnout is significantly lower. In 2014, the turnout was, I think that was around 14%. And in the presidential election in 2012, it was around 32%. This was 46%. This was larger than the general election. I think it was either 2014 or 2015. There were actually more votes cast in the primary than in the general in that election. State Central Committee. Denise Verdi, please stand up. Denise won re-election for State Central Committee in the 25th District, and she was one of the 9 conservatives in that body, and she stood up for conservative values there, and she will continue to do so.
Would you check your vote here?
That's only Lake County. Yeah.
Right, these numbers are only Lake County. Cuyahoga County is the other part of her district, not all of Cuyahoga, but a portion of it.
All right, it looks like, let's see, where's my numbers? Oh, here we go, yeah. Check your cheaters here.
Yes.
I know somebody emailed me the numbers on them for Cuyahoga, but
You won by 600 some votes in Cuyahoga, right?
it was like 693 votes.
Okay, so
I mean, total, I was ahead.
so total you're close to 600 votes ahead of your opponent.
Cuyahoga really.
So congratulations.
Let me try to vote.
He did not.
Must be a lot of
Okay. In the Central Committee, in the 18th District, which is Willoughby Hills, Kirtland, three wards in Mentor, Paynesville Township, Leroy, Madison, Perry, etc. Greg Sasse was our candidate, and this was really weird because Andy Manning withdrew from the race and got almost half the vote. That's better than he did 2 years ago when he was running. I really don't understand. I really don't understand it.
Okay, Michael, since you're talking numbers, though, I think like if you're a numbers guy here, this is what it is. I got 4,216 votes in Cuyahoga, and she got 3,425 votes.
Oh, okay, almost 800 difference there. Okay. So, I don't know how to explain that. I think he got 21% of the vote 2 years ago, and it was much smaller vote. But
I just went to a funeral for a man, and he might be dead.
he's from Portage County. I think he's. I haven't heard of him.
So did Greg win though?
Greg did not win.
Greg did not win.
No, Greg. I believe Greg came in third in all 3 counties in which he was running. And for the female in the 18th District, Linda O'Brien was the one we were supporting. Mary O'Toole won re-election. And I don't know how much support those candidates got from the Ohio Republican Party. Imagine they got some.
We're on the thing. She was on the.
Yeah, I know that there was the slate card that was mailed out, and that's an important thing in the primary, because you get a lot of voters that take that slate card. They don't know anything about any of the candidates, or very little, and they go down the line, and these are the ones I'm going to vote for because these are the ones my party is telling me I should vote for. So it kind of It's part of that non-level playing field.
What it is it's, the incumbents, unless they chose to withdraw from being endorsed, all the incumbent state central were endorsed.
Right, they,
Besides maybe a couple people, troublemakers.
right. The State Central Committee folks voted to endorse themselves, and they're only allowed to endorse incumbents. And so they pretty much endorsed themselves and had opportunity then to get the support of the party. The only two, as Denise mentioned, the only two that were not endorsed were the two top conservatives in the group that continually brought issues up. And they were not endorsed because they found some kind of technicality to question their petitions that they filed to run. Those issues were subsequently resolved because they weren't really issues, but that was enough to keep them from being voted in when they voted. Then they had an opportunity, a separate vote, to vote for those two. Guess what? They didn't get it.
Do you know if they had a plan? They did.
They did. They did.
There's a lot more to that. There's other technicalities that they caught them at, and they twisted some things, and they did all kinds of shenanigans and stuff on Lisa and Gary, and so.
Right. Right. Okay. County Precinct Committeemen. These are the folks who ran and won for precinct committee in Lake County. Now it looks like a long list, but when there are 159 precincts or something like that, the list is relatively small. And of those candidates, all of them were uncontested except for two, Noreen Shipman in Paynesville 3C and Amy Cossack in Paynesville Township I were uncontested. The, I think, other 15 contested races we did not win. If anybody,
Mine was contested.
your opponent withdrew. So you were contested in a sense, but you were going to win. So if anybody's aware of what kind of campaign the contested people ran, that the party people ran, if you could pass that information along to me, I'd appreciate that. And these are the candidates who stepped up, ran for office, did the things that we wanted them to do, but were not able to beat the establishment candidates. And you'll note that two of those races were very, very close. Yeah, Ben Holt in Madison Village lost 123 to 122. Now, does that point out to you the importance of a single vote? Every vote counts. Now, these are the unofficial results, so there are provisional ballots yet to be counted and or absentee ballots that were postmarked and came in subsequently. So within, I think, 10 days of the election, the final results will come out. It may change, but it may not. It may still remain a loss for our candidates. But Greg Sasse lost 126 to 124. Again, extremely close. So we had a lot of good candidates, and but we came up short. Since we're a little bit short on time here, if we've taken a little more time than I anticipated, we're going to skip to our candidates, and we'd like to first have Kim Laurie come and speak to us, and you would welcome her.
All right, I'm going to thank you guys again for all of the work that you did to help my campaign as well as Matt's campaign. As you know, we have limited resources, as always, and so you guys make up the difference. And as you can see the numbers up here, there was no way that we could have anticipated the number of crossover votes or new voters. So we did everything we could. You guys worked your tails off, I know it, I appreciate it. And I have a couple things to say, I'm not sure where to start. I don't want you guys to be discouraged, okay? Because I'm not discouraged. Seeing that we managed to earn 3 times more of the votes that we had last time, this time around, that means we're making progress.
Yes.
Okay? And I want to tell you the same thing I tell myself, that we are doing God's work. Okay? Everything that we do and everything that happens, all of the outcomes, whether we think they're good or bad, it's all part of the grand scheme. And we might not know yet what that grand scheme is, but I would be willing to bet that there's going to come a day, sometime hopefully in the nearer future than the farther future, that we'll be able to look back on this and say, that's why it went that way.
Yeah.
The presidential field right now is so unusual. I'll just say it's unusual. All right? It's very possible that we kind of dodged the bullet here, that we're not going to be in the middle of it trying to get people's attention, say, hey, don't forget me, little commissioner candidate, you know, because it's going to be crazy. I don't know what's going to happen if there's going to end up being a contested convention. I'm anxious about what's going to end up happening and, you know, what the party might try to do. And speaking of the party, another reason not to be discouraged, the lady in the back was talking about how can we combat the money and the resources and everything, the dirty tricks that they're willing to do. You know, we don't do that. We don't play that game.
That's good.
But what you're seeing is that they care about us and they are getting desperate. And I hope that you guys saw that this time around. And even we'll continue to see it with the presidential election, the way that they're going to be reacting. And more people are going to see them for who they really are and the games that they're willing to play. And while we had a lot of crossovers this time around who maybe haven't been paying so much attention to the Republican side of things, when we get 2 years from now and we're back at the off-year election, we're going to have even more people who have awakened to the games and the tricks, and we're going to be able to be even more successful then. So don't be discouraged, okay? We've made a lot of progress. And I want to read to you an email that I received. While I was standing all by myself at the one of the East Lake polling locations on Tuesday, none of the other candidates or volunteers were there, so I was talking to the birds and the chipmunks and stuff while I was sitting there. So I happened to look at my phone, and I got this email. I don't know this woman personally, and I'm guessing you guys probably don't either. She said, "My husband and I just returned from voting, and I wanted to share something with you. I have no idea how the voting will go today, but I know what I hope will happen. Never underestimate the door-to-door approach. When you ran last for this office, you came to our door with Mr. Sasse. I was impressed with your personalness, but also with your political stance. I didn't forget that when it came time to vote again. Also, your newsletter, it's too nice and too detailed to be called a flyer, was top-notch. It was clear and left us with no questions as to why we should vote for you. I'm praying you are encouraged today, no matter how the vote goes. We need more like you in politics." We never would have reached her had we not stood up and run. Okay, so that's why we do this, and that's why we're going to keep doing this. And right now, our task is simply to figure out what role we are supposed to play next in the grand scheme. Okay, so I'm not giving up. I hope you guys aren't giving up. I hope you're encouraged to continue, and I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Kim. And at this time, we'd like to welcome Matt Lynch.
Hey everybody, give it up. We're just starting. I mean, we're just starting. Hey, listen, let me tell you something. Last time, 2 years ago, I had 20-some thousand votes. I had 43,000 votes this time. Last election, there were 54,000 or some votes that were cast. Now this time I got 43,000 votes. So just think about that. And you know, we did some polling during this process. And there's a lot to say about the whole election cycle because it was an odd cycle for sure. We actually started polling last fall. And we had polls that showed me up as much as 15% last fall. 15%. Because we were out there already campaigning. Dave Joyce hadn't even started yet until January. So September, October, November, December, we had it all to ourselves. But he started in January big time, as you know. And we did polls again and again. And we, right up to the weekend of the election, the polls were still showing that Matt Lynch was up 3 to 5%. So we had held on to our lead among Republican primary voters. But I wasn't talking to the Democrats or the independents. And of course he was. Not only was he reaching them by his radio and his TV, but that negative bang, bang, bang. So that's really what happened here in a very ideal election. But there was a very interesting thing that was polled in the process, because we just don't ask them who they're going to vote for, but we ask them who they are, men, women, education, income, all that kind of stuff. And they measure something called intensity. Now, intensity is the number that tells you how devoted that voter is to their candidate. So they measure that on a scale of 1 to 20. And when they talked to Matt Lynch supporters, they were given, and they would ask questions about how committed they were. They calculated that a Matt Lynch supporter, on average, rated a 17 out of 20 as committed to Matt Lynch voter. In other words, if they knew who I was and they knew what I stood for, they were committed to voting for me. Someone sent me an email, you know, they would walk across broken glass to get to the polls to vote for Matt Lynch. They're going to vote for Matt Lynch. When they measured the intensity level for the Dave Joyce voters, he came in with an 8.
Wow.
So he had voters, of course he had voters. He had many more than I did. But the voters he had weren't really connected to him very well. He was just the only name they heard. So that tells you that those 43,000 people that voted for Matt Lynch, just was it already last week? I guess it's already last week.
No, it's just
Oh, that's already yesterday? Feels like an eternity. Chuck said, "You sure you want to come talk so close after election?" I said, "Heck yeah, this is good news." Those 43,000 voters, they're going to always vote for Matt Lynch. Always vote for Matt Lynch. And when there's only 50,000 people voting, we will overwhelmingly. So we really, you know, this is it's a strange thing, because, you know, we could look at the board and scoreboard and say, well, we lost a lot of races. We lost a lot of central committee races and state committee races and commissioner races and so forth. But folks, we're having a tremendous impact on the electorate. And Kim is absolutely right. The seeds that we're sowing now are going to bear fruit. And our opposition on the other side, and I wish I was only talking about the Democrats, but our opposition, they are scared to death. In the last 2 elections, we now believe that the Republican Party and their supporters have spent $5 million to keep me out of Congress. Holy mackerel. We could have just each taken $1 million each, you know, and be happy. We're saving money. $5 million, yes.
They don't want another Ted Cruz.
Don't set the bar quite so high.
Run again in 2008.
So here's the thing. You know, I've said this sometimes in the past, But there's a point to be made here about how people fought for liberty and freedom in the centuries past. You know, and we know the stories. The Valley Forge. We know that George Washington's army, they fought without boots. All right. We've seen the films of the people that died on the beach of Normandy, right? They were machine gunned so that we could be here tonight.
My brother died in World War II, 18 years old.
We do not have the right to walk away from this fight, and I will not walk away from this fight. Because I love my children and grandchildren. Do you love your children and grandchildren? Do you love your country? Are you willing to stay in the fight?
Yes.
That's what we need to do. And Kim is absolutely right when she talks about doing God's work. And the Lord, you know, God does not promise us victory. He only asks us to be obedient. All right? So that's what we're doing here. We're being obedient by spreading the cause of liberty. You know, we're spreading the cause of religious freedom. We're fighting for not simply the right to a job, as important as that is, but for religious liberty, for the unborn, for those that we know in the generations to come will suffer mightily if we don't make the effort today.
That's right.
And so we will, I believe, prevail. Now, you know, my wife, I was at the office today. I actually have a law practice. I used to have a law practice. Thanks to my niece and brother, it's still struggling on. But I came home from the office today before I came here, and I'm in a very good mood. Are you in a good mood? Be in a good mood. Be in good cheer. I came home and my wife said, "Now, is this real, or are you really like psychotic or something?" But we did tremendously well against all odds. Did you see those ads against me? Yeah. Why would anybody vote for Matt Lynch? I don't know if you heard my radio ad. We did have one radio ad we could barely afford, but it started with me saying, you know, if I believed half the things my opponent said about me, my wife wouldn't even vote. So that's the problem that we're dealing with people on the other side. You know, sad to say, they have no integrity. They have no love of liberty. They have no love for the Constitution and what it represents. And because of that, some might say, oh, they have the advantage. You know, they can cheat and lie and steal, and we can't. Well, that's true. But we will still be victorious in the end.
Amen.
Because God is on our side, and we will win the victory. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but we will win the victory for our children and grandchildren if you stay in the fight, and I encourage you to stay in the fight, just like Kim's going to stay in the fight. If you all stay in the fight, we will win. Whether it's 2018 or beyond, I don't know. But I want to, I don't know what's going to happen with the presidential. You know, it's a very mixed up situation, as Kim says. But I've been reading more and more about Abraham Lincoln because the history of the Republican Party and the history of how the Republican Party was born is important to remember. And many of you know this, but I'll remind you that in the 1850s, the critical issue was whether or not a person's skin defined that they were actually a human being deserving of rights, deserving to be constitutional protection. The color of a person's skin. Now, to us today, this seems ridiculous. But that was the burning issue. And it was the Christian church that demanded that slavery be stopped in the United States of America. And in other nations as well. There were wonderful Christians in England fighting the same fight. And when the Whig Party in the 1850s, you know, the Democratic Party in the 1850s was the party of slavery. Even into the 50s, there were members of the Ku Klux Klan in Congress who were Democrats.
Mr. Byrd.
Right?
Yes.
So it is impossible to escape the history that the Democrats have been on the side of denying people's rights for centuries. But it was in the Whig Party that Abraham Lincoln and some of his associates said that this principle must be fought for. And the Whig Party would not stand up against slavery. And so they left the Whig Party and they formed the Republican Party. And Abraham Lincoln became the first Republican president almost exclusively because he would not bend on principle. He wanted to stand what was morally correct. He wanted to stand with his God and his country and bring his country in line with what God demanded. Folks, we have the same task today, to bring our country back to be in line with what God demands. God demands that we defend the Judeo-Christian principles that this country was founded on. You know, when I was interviewed by the Cleveland Plain Dealer, and it's still online at cleveland.com, by the way, they actually videotaped it. It was the only time that Dave Joyce and I were in the same room, because I was chasing him around the 14th District and he would never talk to me, but we were in the same room. And by the way, he criticized me because I had vanity plates on my Jaguar, does he know? I have a Jaguar with 200,000 miles on it, but I have a plate that says Jaguar, so that's what he wanted to point out to the editorial board. And they must have thought that was important because they said that if Matt Lynch was elected, I'd unravel the fabric of America. What power I had. But the Republican Party of the 1850s that stood on principle and elected Abraham Lincoln must be the Republican Party of the 21st century, or perhaps a new party of the 21st century that decides to stand on principle. I don't know where this is going, because I don't think you can form, you know, I've always said in the past when people talk third party, I said, well, it's easier to steal a car than to build a car, right? So we talk about stealing the Republican Party by taking over the central committee state and countywide. But with the right national leader, we might be able to start a third party that was devoted to principle, and devoted to the Constitution, and devoted to life and the rest. And I don't know, maybe Ted Cruz is that kind of a candidate. I don't know. So I don't know where this road's going to lead. But I do know that we're going to march down that road wherever God opens those doors. Whether it's another candidacy for Kim or myself or many of you in this room that have been frustrated by the Central Committee process. But I believe that we must be committed in the same way the Republican Party of the 1850s was committed, the same way that Abraham Lincoln was committed.
Yes.
Not simply into the power, the prestige, the money. That's the guys that are in there now, the guys and gals.
Yeah.
What we need are people that are devoted to principle. And when the other side looks down on us, looks down their nose on us, which is what they do, and ridicule us, and lie, pretend they're one thing. You know, I had 43,000 votes. But you know, most of the Republicans that voted for Dave Joyce, most of them, thought they were voting for a conservative. Just think about that.
He's got to walk his talk.
In order for Dave Joyce to get elected, he had to pretend he was like Matt Lynch. That's a little strange.
Yeah, we don't.
All right?
He's got problems.
But guess what? He's not.
Yeah.
He's not. And so I am asking you to take a deep breath. These election cycles are very short, only 2 years. And believe, like the men that marched to Washington, like the men that stormed those beaches of Normandy to almost certain death, and others that crawled over their bodies to take the cliffs to fight the Nazis. Believe, because that belief will propel us forward. And with God's grace and your faith in God's grace, we will be victorious again in the United States of America. Okay, I'm going to sit down. Brian, you have a question?
Matt, you had mentioned to me that, I believe I'm correct, that 50% of Christians